This is Ron Hextall, the goalie who refused to play by the book. While every other netminder stayed in their crease, Hextall charged into chaos, fired breakout passes, and even scored goals himself. It wasn't only style, it was disruption. And what happened next would leave the NHL scrambling to write brand new rules just to contain him. What kind of player forces an entire league to redraw the ice surface? This is the story of the goalie who turned hockey upside down. The goalie who played offense. Ron Hextall wasn't only a goalie, he was the goalie who played offense. At a time when most netminders stuck to the basics, he treated open ice as part of his domain. He didn't wait around in the crease for the play to come to him, he went out to meet it. And for fans who had grown up on conservative hockey, it became a shock to see one of the most traditional positions in the sport suddenly reimagined. Back in the 1980s, the goaltender's role was generally seen in the most simple of terms: protect the net and let the stalkers handle the rest. If a puck slid behind the net, most goalies would cautiously nudge it into the corner or wait for a defenseman to retrieve it. Creativity was not part of the job description. Hextall turned that convention upside down. He skated out of his crease aggressively, cutting off dump ins before opposing forwards could gain possession. And then he would rifle sharp passes that sent his teammates moving up the ice. Sometimes he even blasted the puck the full length of the rink, testing whether his shot could create a scoring chance on its own. These weren't only rare improvisations, they were deliberate and built into his game every night. That contrast made him impossible to ignore. Just imagine a typical goalie of that era freezing in place behind the net. And then picture Hextall surging forward, corralling the puck and sending a tape-to-tape breakout pass as if he were a defenseman. His handling wasn't awkward or hesitant. It carried the confidence of a skater. And for many, this would be the first time they had seen a goalie treat puck movement as a weapon. Public reaction swung wildly. Some admired Hextall for breaking the mold, while others thought he was tempting disaster. Each time he left his net open, the risk became obvious. One unlucky bounce, and it could be an easy goal against. Rival coaches even adjusted their tactics, urging their players to dump pucks into the corners constantly, baiting Hextall to leave the crease. His approach didn't only challenge his opponents, it disrupted the rhythm of an entire offensive strategy. This tension would create a sense of anticipation each and every time he played. Would his boldness collapse in failure, or would it deliver something new that the game had never seen? That suspense would build over the course of his career until one night in the late 1980s when that gamble finally paid off in historic fashion. After retrieving a puck near his own net late in the game, instead of holding it or passing short, he fired a long shot toward the empty cage at the other end. To the shock of everyone, it went in. Hextall then became the first goaltender to be officially credited with scoring a goal in the NHL. Suddenly, that line between risky experiment and unforgettable achievement would be erased. One single play would prove his style wasn't only about flair, it could change the scoreboard. But the bigger impact wasn't just on highlights or the record books. It was on the way that the rest of the league would be forced to respond. Coaches, systems, and even rule makers would soon find themselves wrestling with how to contain a goalie who had turned offense into part of his job. When one player forces a rule change. Usually, NHL rules evolve through years of debate and gradual adjustment, but in this case, the pressure came from the way that one goalie played. Ron Hextall's approach disrupted more than his opponents. It challenged the structure of strategies that teams had relied on for decades. One major casualty of his style was the dump and chase. Traditionally, coaches loved the play, send the puck deep, chase after it, and pressure defensemen into mistakes. But against Hextall, that sequence became unreliable. He would cut the puck off behind the net before forecheckers arrived and send it flying back up the ice. What had long been considered a safe way to pin your opponent down suddenly left teams chasing back to stop counterattacks. For clubs that were built on forechecking pressure, this was a major issue. Systems designed to grind opponents into their own zone would fall apart when a goalie could erase them in seconds. Coaches would watch their most dependable play evaporate, and some began to rethink more broad strategy. Instead of pouring energy into an all-out forecheck, teams experimented with more passive neutral zone coverage, hoping to slow transitions before Hextall's passes could create odd man rushes the other way. It wasn't only opponents making adjustments, though. Other goalies began to notice what he was doing, and a few started practicing puck handling in a more serious way, treating it as part of their own toolkit. Not everyone had Hextall's ability with the stick, but enough tried to mimic him that the role of a goaltender became a blur. They weren't only shot blockers anymore. In some cases, they looked like an extra defenseman dictating the pace of the breakout. This would create a ripple effect across the league. Coaches no longer had a predictable template to plan against because some goalies now inserted themselves directly into the play. With defenders less involved in retrieving dump-ins, entire forecheck strategies had lost their impact. Over seasons, the pressure for structure would grow louder. Teams, media, and fans all began questioning whether hockey could continue without some kind of guardrail on how far goalies would be able to take their new freedom. Eventually, the NHL responded. Following years of experimentation and a more broad review of how to increase offense after the 2004-05 lockout, the league would introduce a clear change: the trapezoid. Painted behind every net starting in the 2005-06 season, this shape marked the only space where a goalie could legally handle the puck. While defenders still had free range, goaltenders stepping outside of those lines became restricted, and the trapezoid would reshape how dump-ins and breakouts unfolded. The effect became straightforward. Goaltenders could no longer race into the corner to pick off a puck like Hextall once had. They had to stay within the marked zone or end up risking a penalty. Whether the rule was targeted directly at Hextall or simply at the trend that he helped to inspire, many saw the trapezoid as a visible reaction to what had began with Hextall's boldness years earlier. In the end, a few painted lines on the ice stood as proof of how much one player could influence the sport. A position once defined purely by defense had now been stretched so far that the rulebook and even the rink itself were altered to pull it back. Even now, that trapezoid sits behind every net as a reminder of the shift that Hextall sent in motion, raising the question of what his impact really meant for the role of a goaltender. Ron Hextall showed that a goalie could do more than just stop the puck. He could reshape how the position was seen and how the league responded. His aggressive puck handling and willingness to create offense had left a long-lasting mark, not only on goaltending, but on the rules that govern it. So now the question becomes, should today's goaltenders be given the same freedom to play Hextall style again? Tell me what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into hockey history, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more breakdowns of the game's biggest shifts. In the end, Hextall's impact is a reminder that sometimes one bold player can change the sport forever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.